California does not look like a state that hides things. Everything here is supposed to be visible. The sun is permanent. The landscape is vast. The culture is built on the idea of arrival. People come here, make it, and are seen. California invented the highway, the suburb, the celebrity. Nowhere in America is more photographed, more mapped, which makes what we're about to show you stranger than it should be. Scattered across this state, in the desert, at the bottom of dry lake beds, on a sinking island in the middle of San Francisco Bay, are places Google Maps technically shows you but never explains. Roads built for 40,000 people, towns with full infrastructure, and almost no one in them. A ghost town you can only see from a moving train. We're going to 12 of them. The one at the end, a man bought it for $1.4 million, moved in alone during a pandemic, and the hotel burned down on the 149th anniversary of its opening. Let's go. Number 12, Drawbridge, Fremont. Drawbridge exists on an island in the southern end of San Francisco Bay, 6 miles south of Fremont. You cannot drive to it. You cannot walk to it legally. The only way in is along Union Pacific tracks that still carry freight, and the federal government, which manages the land as a wildlife refuge, considers visiting a trespassing offense. The only legal way to see Drawbridge is from a moving train. Amtrak's Capital Corridor line passes through between San Jose and Oakland. Riders who know to look get about 30 seconds. 24 wooden structures tilting at various angles into the marsh, gray with age and salt air, their foundations sunken into the ground. Some are nothing but roof ridges above the mud. Others still hold their shape, walls standing, windows empty, the geometry of a room nobody has been inside since the 1970s. In its prime, Drawbridge was a weekend destination for fishing and hunting. By the 1920s, it had 90 buildings and a reputation as a gaming town where police were reluctant to show up because everyone was armed. Prohibition made it useful in ways that the authorities preferred not to investigate. The ground was sinking. The aquifer below was being drained by surrounding agriculture, and the island was descending slowly into the bay. By 1963, fewer than 5 people remained. Vandals found the empty buildings. The last resident, Charlie Luce, left in 1979 after his windows had been shot out too many times to make staying worth it. The federal government's plan is to let Drawbridge continue sinking until the marsh reclaims it entirely. Every year, the buildings go a little further in. If you want to see what remains, you have the time between 2 train stations to do it. Garlock is in the Mojave Desert at the end of a road that comes off Highway 395 near Cantil. It was a gold rush town in the late 1890s, a place that existed to crush ore from the Yellow Aster mine in Randsburg, 6 miles away, and to supply the miners who worked there. At its peak in the late 1890s, it had several hundred residents, a church, a school, and a Garlock Literary Society founded, according to its charter, to be a positive influence on the town's morals. Whether the Literary Society achieved its stated purpose is not recorded. What is recorded is that by 1903, 4 years after its peak, every last resident had moved away. Garlock's timeline from arrival to abandonment was approximately 7 years. What remains today is on private land behind fencing. A handful of weathered desert buildings still stand, including a structure that served as the schoolhouse, then a general store, and then reportedly a brothel and speakeasy for the remaining Randsburg miners during the 1920s. A career arc that tells you something about how fast things changed out here. The California Historical Landmark marker is at the roadside. The buildings are visible from it. You can look without going in. The Garlock Fault runs directly beneath the town. Seismologists monitor it. The fault connects to the San Andreas system and carries its own potential for a major earthquake. The same land that the miners abandoned in 1903 for economic reasons is now watched carefully by geologists for entirely different ones. Number 10, North Shore Beach and Yacht Club, Riverside County. The building is still there. That's the remarkable thing about it. The North Shore Beach and Yacht Club on the northeastern shore of the Salton Sea was designed in the late 1950s as a centerpiece for what developers were calling the California Riviera, a desert resort to compete with Palm Springs, with boating and fishing and an inland beach that put the Pacific Ocean's crowds in the rear-view mirror. The Yacht Club building itself is a piece of mid-century modern architecture, with sweeping roof lines, wide concrete canopies, and the confident geometry of a period when California was building the future and meant it. It opened around 1960. It was abandoned by the mid-1980s. For decades, it sat deteriorating in the desert, windows broken, walls graffitied, the parking lot cracking under the heat. In 2010, the county of Riverside spent roughly $2 million to restore the exterior and stabilize the structure as a historic landmark. The building is now preserved. It is also completely empty. There are no boats. The marina that used to sit in front of it is gone. The Salton Sea has been receding for decades, and the shoreline is now hundreds of feet further out than it was when the Yacht Club was built. An expanse of cracked salt flat between the building's entrance and the water. Stand in front of the North Shore Yacht Club on a hot afternoon and you're looking at a perfectly restored building with nowhere to go. The architecture survived. The reason for the architecture didn't. Frank Sinatra performed here. The Beach Boys came here. In the 1950s, Bombay Beach on the eastern shore of the Salton Sea attracted 500,000 visitors a year. Water skiing, fishing, desert sun, celebrities driving out from Palm Springs on weekends. The Sports Illustrated piece that covered the Salton Sea in the early 1950s praised the fishing and the resort potential. It also noted in the same issue that the lake had no outlet, water came in, nothing went out except evaporation, and that salinity would increase steadily until the ecosystem could no longer support fish. Scientists estimated 25 years before it became a problem. They were right. In 1976 and 1977, 2 tropical storms raised the water level of the Salton Sea by 8 feet in hours, flooding the Bombay Beach trailer park and sinking part of the town permanently into the mud. The people who left did so quickly enough to leave the furniture behind. The people who stayed were, as one account put it, those too old or too sick or too poor to go elsewhere. Today, Bombay Beach has a population of around 230. The flooded section is permanent ruin, cement foundations, the frame of what used to be a dock, a shoreline that smells of salt and decomposing fish matter. Artists arrived in the 2010s, installing sculptures and murals in the abandoned structures, and the Bombay Beach Biennale now draws visitors from across the world every spring. The Salton Sea is projected to lose 40% of its remaining water within 15 years. The dry lake bed it leaves behind carries arsenic and selenium dust to Los Angeles on the right wind. Imperial County has some of the worst pediatric asthma rates in California. It sits 223 feet below sea level. It has an annual art festival. California contains multitudes. Salton City is not a ruin. That's what makes it strange. In the late 1950s, developers laid out a planned community on the western shore of the Salton Sea with full ambition. 25,000 residential lots, more than 250 miles of paved roads, complete water and sewage infrastructure, an 18-hole golf course, a luxury hotel, a yacht club. Albert Frey, the architect behind parts of Palm Springs, designed the business district. On opening weekend in 1958, the development sold $4.25 million worth of lots. Today, Salton City has roughly 5,000 residents. The roads are still there, all 250 miles long, running through open desert past empty lots with street signs naming the avenues things like Seaview Drive and Sea Mist Place. The infrastructure is underground. 81% of surveyed lots, as of the last comprehensive count, remain undeveloped. Drive the grid of Salton City and it feels like driving through a city that was built and never occupied. The streetlights work, the fire hydrants are there. But the houses, most of them, were never built. The yacht club is closed. The marina has no water near it. The dream of the California Riviera was real, was documented, was sold to thousands of investors, and then the lake started dying and nobody came. The streets are the evidence. The empty lots between them are the outcome. Number 7. Calico, San Bernardino County. Calico is in the Calico Mountains near Barstow, and it requires a small calibration of expectations before you arrive. Part of it has been turned into a county park with admission tickets, a tourist railroad, and gift shops. That part is fine. What makes Calico worth including here is what is underneath the commercial layer, a genuine silver rush town from the 1880s with 5 original structures still standing amid the reconstruction and mine shafts in the surrounding hills that run for miles and have never been fully mapped. At its peak in the mid-1880s, Calico produced the largest silver strike in California. By 1896, the silver was gone and the town was empty. When Walter Knott of Knott's Berry Farm fame bought the ruins in the 1950s and began reconstructing them, the 5 original buildings that had survived fire and time became the anchors of the rebuilt version: the original Lane House, the general store, the saloon, the park office, and the Zenda Mining Company building, all built in a rammed earth style that outlasted the wooden structures that burned. The Maggie mine shaft at the edge of town is the real thing. Walk into it and you walk into the 1880s in a way that the reconstructed storefronts do not quite achieve. An actual tunnel cut by actual miners into rock that paid actual fortunes before it stopped paying entirely. The darkness in there is the same darkness it was then. That part costs nothing extra. Number 6. Knapp's Castle, Santa Barbara County. George Owen Knapp made his fortune in Union Carbide, and in 1916 he built a stone castle in the Santa Ynez Mountains above Santa Barbara. The site looked across the Santa Ynez Valley on one side and toward the Pacific Ocean on the other. He built a main house, a guest house, 5 guest cottages, and servants' quarters, all of substantial stone construction designed to last. In 1940, a forest fire moved through and burned everything that could burn. The stone walls did not burn, they are still there. At Knapp's Castle today, which is accessible by a short hike from a pullout on East Camino Cielo Road above Santa Barbara, you find the walls of a large stone house standing open to the sky. Fireplaces still in their original positions, windows that look out onto a view that has not changed, and arched doorways opening onto air where rooms used to be. The floor is gone. The roof is gone. The interior is now the exterior. On clear mornings, which are most mornings in that location, the view from inside the walls of the main house extends to the Channel Islands 30 miles offshore. The ruins are framed against the Santa Ynez Mountains behind them. It is one of the more specific sensations available in California, standing inside a stone room with no ceiling and looking at an island in the Pacific Ocean through an arch that craftsmen cut in 1916 for a window that no longer exists. The site is on U.S. Forest Service land, and it is open to the public. Murphy's Ranch is in the hills of Pacific Palisades, accessible by a steep trail that descends from Mulholland Drive down into a canyon. When you reach it, what you find is the remains of a large agricultural compound, concrete foundations, a water tower, the shell of a generator building, assorted collapsed structures scattered across a flat area on the canyon floor, every visible surface covered in layer after layer of graffiti. The history is the reason it's on this list. In the late 1930s, a group of American Nazi sympathizers purchased this land as a self-sufficient compound designed to serve as the command center for a Nazi takeover of the United States. After Germany won the expected war, the ideology was specific, documented, and serious. They were preparing infrastructure for an occupation. They stored fuel, grew food, and generated their own power. The compound was meant to function after a collapse of the American government. The United States did not collapse. Germany did not win. In 1941, following Pearl Harbor, the LAPD raided the compound and arrested the owners. The property passed through several hands over the following decades and eventually fell into disuse and abandonment. The trail down to Murphy's Ranch passes through Rustic Canyon, descends about 500 steps of a concrete staircase built in the 1930s by the compound's original builders, and arrives at the ruins. Los Angeles is minutes away in every direction. The Santa Monica Mountains are overhead. What is in front of you in a canyon in the hills of Pacific Palisades are the physical remains of a serious plan for something that did not happen. The graffiti artists who have covered every surface have, in a specific way, completed the aesthetic picture. Bodie is the most famous ghost town in California and possibly the most remarkable one in America for a reason that takes a moment to absorb. Almost nothing has been removed. The state of California, which has managed Bodie as a historic park since 1962, operates under a policy called arrested decay. The buildings are not restored, they are not demolished, they are stabilized at whatever state of deterioration they were in when the state took over and left there. The roofs are repaired to prevent structural collapse, but to match the appearance of a decaying structure, not a restored one. Nothing is cleaned, nothing is improved. Furniture stays where it was. The bottles on the windowsills, the medicines in the pharmacy cabinet, the food in the cans on the store shelves. Walk through Bodie today for $8 with other visitors on a summer day, and you walk through the physical remains of a town where 10,000 people lived in 1879. 110 of the original structures are still standing. The beds are still in the bedrooms. The desks are in the schoolroom. The safe is still in the bank. The walls of the bank are gone, but the safe sits in the open air exactly where it was installed. Bodie had 65 saloons at its peak. The newspapers of the period reported on the killings, which were frequent. A child moving to Bodie in 1880 reportedly wrote in her diary, "Goodbye God, I'm going to Bodie." It has been noted that this may have been transcribed incorrectly and may originally have been, "Good God, I'm going to Bodie." Either way, every year Bodie is slightly more decayed than the year before. The state of California is preserving a town in the process of disintegrating. It will take a long time. The visit you take today is to a different Bodie than the one from a decade ago. Cerro Gordo is 8 miles up a dirt road in the Inyo Mountains above Death Valley at 9,000 feet. The road up, called the Yellow Grade, climbs via switchbacks steep enough to require 4-wheel drive. When you get there, 22 buildings are surviving from what was once the richest silver-producing town in California. Between 1865 and the 1930s, Cerro Gordo produced an estimated $500 million worth of silver and lead, adjusted for inflation. The silver was transported by 20 mule team down the mountain, then shipped by steamboat across Owens Lake, now dry, to a small pueblo at the far end called Los Angeles. The mining camp had approximately 1 murder per week at its peak. There was no formal law enforcement. Men slept with sandbags in their bunks to stop bullets passing through the wooden walls. The postmaster shot a man in 1892 and was fined $30. In 2018, a man named Brent Underwood bought the entire town, every structure, every mine shaft, for $1.4 million. He moved in during March 2020 and was immediately snowed in for weeks. On June 15, 2020, precisely 149 years to the day that the American Hotel first opened, it caught fire from an old electrical wire combined with century-old newspapers stuffed into the walls as insulation. The hotel burned to the foundation within hours. Underwood still lives there. He has been documenting the restoration on YouTube, exploring mine shafts that have not been entered in decades, finding briefcases full of letters, bank statements, and love letters from the 1870s. The town now offers occasional overnight visits. The drive down the Yellow Grade at night, with Death Valley visible below and the Milky Way overhead, is described consistently by everyone who has made it as something without an adequate comparison. Number 2. Salton Sea's sunken infrastructure, Imperial and Riverside counties. This one does not have a single address. It is scattered across both shorelines of the Salton Sea for about 70 miles. The reason it belongs on this list is specific. It is still there. The Salton Sea was created in 1905 when a canal diverting water from the Colorado River ruptured and sent the river into the Salton Basin for 2 years before the breach was sealed. By the 1950s, it was a tourist destination. By the 1980s, it was dewine. What the receding water has left along the shoreline is a catalog of decades of resort investment. Marinas with no water near them, concrete boat ramps that end in salt flat, dock pilings standing in dry ground, and resort foundations sitting hundreds of feet from the waterline. Drive the perimeter, and you can watch the sequence, each decade's optimism sitting a little further back from the water than the previous one. The infrastructure was real. The people who built it believed it. The water just did not care about the investment thesis. The dust from the receding lake bed carries arsenic and selenium. Imperial County has some of the worst pediatric asthma rates in California. The sunken marinas and cracked boat ramps are the permanent record of what the plan looked like in the years before it became clear that California had accidentally created an inland sea with no drain and no solution. Number 1. Cerro Gordo open shafts. This needs a clarification. Number 1 is not a separate town. It is the part of Cerro Gordo that the buildings on the surface do not prepare you for. Beneath the 22 structures at 9,000 feet, there are more than 30 miles of mine tunnels. Most of them have not been entered since mining stopped in the 1930s. Some sections are mapped, some are not. The shafts drop hundreds of feet into the mountain. In one tunnel, a small underground lake was discovered. The water had been sitting in total darkness inside the Inyo Mountains for decades, its surface completely undisturbed until the moment Brent Underwood's headlamp hit it. The miners who worked those tunnels are in the cemetery above town. Many of them died underground. In the 1918 influenza pandemic, the miners who died here were buried on the mountain because the road was impassable. There were no services. The graves were marked when there was something to mark them with and unmarked when there was not. 30 miners reportedly became trapped in a single shaft at some point during the active mining period, and their remains, as the story is told on the mountain, are still there. Walk the surface of Cerro Gordo, and what you're walking on is a mountain with more history below it than above it. The buildings are the evidence, the shafts are the story, and the shafts, for the most part, are still sealed, or were, until someone bought the town and started going in. That's California in 12 stops, a sinking town visible only from a moving train. Streets built for 40,000 people where 5,000 now live. Frank Sinatra's beach resort, now a ruin, with an annual art festival and air quality alerts, and a silver mining camp high above Death Valley where a man lives alone, restoring what he can, exploring what has been sealed for a century, walking the same ground where someone was killed approximately once a week and the fine was $30. The state does not put this on the tourism posters. That's your problem to solve.